Phase 3 complete. But oh my stars, did it kick my butt. My name's Zoe, my brain's a dragon, and today we're gonna have a quick chat about Phase 3 and how that didn't work how I thought it was going to. The good news is that Phase 3 is, as far as I am concerned, complete. However, the important thing to note is it looks not entirely different to how I had set it out, but it looks very different to how I had originally set it out. Let's recap what it should look like. According to my notes, this has more scenes, secondary character arcs, plot twists, and character sheets. The more scenes was, helpfully, Save the Cat, Romancing the Beat, and maybe Heroine's Journey. But what I discovered is that that seems like the completely wrong order for me to do them in. To recap, from Phase 1 and 2, we had a story skeleton for Phase 1. When something happens, the protagonist decides to. Can they succeed when? Opposition, antagonist, etc, etc, etc. In Phase 2, we turned that into a 9-beat plot outline. Hook, inciting incident, plot point 1. Pinch point 1, plot point 2, or midpoint. Pinch point 2, the all is lost moment, plot point 3, and then the resolution. There was also the black moment, but we kind of skipped that bit. I could then start having a looking at adding layers in. Now, I said save the cat first. That was not the correct answer. Save the Cat is a wonky thing in my brain, and Brain Dragon and I have had some discussions about that lately. So what I actually did is I went in and put in Romancing the Beat's plot points. And I'll tell you what those are from my handy little notebook. Romancing the Beat also breaks this story down into about 4 sections. The difference with these is that the 4 sections are based on how you go about having the romance blossom. Plot points in these sections don't always hit at particular plot points. In fact, some of them are bare moments in the narrative. In Romancing the Beat, you have the first section, which is from the beginning of the book to about 25% of the way through. You introduce the first hero, you introduce the second hero, which is your romantic pair. You then have a meet cute where they meet. You introduce a point which is called No Way 1, which is the first reason that our couple don't believe in love. Then you have the moment of plot adhesion, so why they have to be stuck together and learn to get over whatever their issue is. As you can see, No Way is probably done at the prose level and is quite a small scene. You can even layer it into many other scenes, which is kind of where it started to fall apart for me, which only got worse when I got to the second section, Falling in Love. You have the second No Way point, which is reiterating the fact that just because that other person is really cute doesn't mean that there will be any making out. Or if there is making out, it won't be any further than that. There is the inkling it will work, the deepening of desire, the maybe it will work, and then the midpoint. The midpoint is the midpoint, happens 50%. And then we get into the section that I hate, because I'm terrible at it and it's uncomfortable, the retreat. It is inkling of doubt, deepening doubt, retreat, shields up, and break up. That's the second half of Act 2, and we have discussed before that I struggle with that immensely. That's why I like the pinch points from Rock Your Plot, and why I like these additional points, because they help add scenes. The third act, or the last 25% of the book, is Fighting for Love. It's a romance. The dark night of the soul happens, all is lost, or the black moment. This is why it can get a bit confusing. The wake up or catharsis, usually when someone is all like, you love them, stop being a noggin, go fix this, which we approve of. The grand gesture, what wholehearted look like, and the epilogue, because it's a romance and epilogues are great. That gave me a good amount of scenes and layering into the scenes I already had. The problem with that is that it didn't really fill a lot of the gaps, which is why when I was trying to do Save the Cat, I was just like, I'm sorry, what now? Save the Cat is a very well-known writing reference book. It started for screenwriters, and I still use the screenwriter version by preference, just because I do. It's the one I have access to. But the problem with Save the Cat is that they have these really big overarching points, like they have setup between 0 and 9%. Cool, that's a whole lot of stuff. I can fill that with things. This one does have a couple of points, so the opening image and the theme being stated within that. But when you get to things like the start of the second act, you have fun and games, which goes from 27% to 50%. There is one plot point apart from that, and that's the B story at 27%. It's almost as bad as Bad Guys Close In from 58 to 68%. What do I even do with that? This is why I have Rock Your Plot as well. I tried to start with that, the Save the Cat stuff, and it just wouldn't play. What made it worse is that I checked my book because I go back and I read my reference books, and I realized that I'm supposed to have 10 scenes in each section of the book, remembering that we're breaking the book into 4 parts: Act 1, Act 2.1, Act 2.2, and Act 3. So each of those sections needs to have 10 scenes. And guess what we came across again? Scene cards. And guess what was different? Scene cards. I cannot tell you how long I spent banging my head against scene cards. I don't understand. And you know what? I finally vaguely got it. Mostly. Kinda. But it was only after spending many hours and about 3 different dead ends for other craft books that I'm like, okay, this one looks like maybe I can find something in there that I can use. I remember writing some notes about this, and I think this has got it. Didn't have it. Turns out it was way less useful than I wanted. I went down so many dead ends, and there was so much frustration and doubling back on myself, and just... To be honest though, I think it kind of feels a lot like actually week 3, and that kind of makes me feel a little bit better. Week 3 is always super hard in Nano. It's the week where you've had all of the excitement from week 1 and you've got like tons into it. You hit week 2 and you're like, yeah, no, I've still got this. I got this. This is fine. Week 3, you're like, no, maybe I don't got this. What? Whose idea was this? What is, why? Why am I doing this to myself and everybody in my life? And this week, I really felt that. I had to completely remodel phase 3 because it just didn't work. Not only had I obviously not done phase 2 yet, so I didn't remember the dopamine trick because I didn't think about it because I thought surely it'll be fine. But when I went back to have a look at the structure, I hadn't set it up in a way that made any kind of sense. There was no step-by-step progression that would help make me feel accomplished. So let's have a look at what I'm actually going to suggest that we do so that we don't end up in the same kind of I wish I was a blanket that I had this particular, what is time? Really? What is it? Doing phase 3. Phase 3. Once we've done phase 2 and we have the beginnings of our outlines, pick a genre-specific outlining method and add that next. They usually have very specific scenes, and that will make it significantly more easy to add in and layer what you already have from Rock Your Plot. In my case, because I'm using a romance, I'm choosing Romancing the Beat by Gwen Hayes. Love the book. Fantastic. Makes me giggle. Worth the read if you happen to like romances, or as the Writing Excuses podcast would call them, relationship stories. It's a buddy cop movie, it's just that they make out. Once you've picked your genre-specific outlining edition, add that in. Then have a look at Save the Cat. There's a lot of good stuff in there, and one of the things that I really like is, believe it or not, despite my previous whinging, the bracket ones. Because if you've got fun and games, you know what kind of tone you're going for and what kind of scenes would fit in with that feel. Bad guys close in? Same deal. You get a feel for it, and it helps to create the kinds of scenes that is going to help move the story along in a way that makes the scenes that follow have meaning and context. The next thing that I suggest is combining them all into one document. This means that some of your scenes are going to have 3 different labels on them because they serve 3 or 4 different purposes. This is fantastic because when you get to have a look at that, you'll be able to see, oh yes, this is the scene where the 2 main love interests meet. We're introducing one of the protagonists' introduction to Hero 1. We're also having this as the inciting incident because something's changed, so that's another plot point. And we're going to also have this as the no way moment where they're like, oh cute, oh yes, but love is somehow evil and I will never fall in love again. My heart is stone, my will is iron, no love for me. And then after those scene sections are done, a fun scenes list. So anything that's perfect moment, I know exactly what kind of moment I want, is so in character for them to have this kind of moment. Put it in the fun scene list, and then you can figure out where it goes for phase 4. The other thing that I didn't realize that I would already have done is a lot of the plot twists and a lot of the secondary character arcs are already worked in with the subplots from the previous section. So I actually covered that significantly better than I thought I was going to. Look at me doing things that I didn't think I needed to do in places I didn't realize I had done them. Then I have to look at character sheets, and they are almost as hard, if not harder, than scene cards, because of course they are. And that made me have a realization. I do things that have narrative importance, and the details don't matter, and I don't remember them if they're not in the narrative. Why am I making cards or sheets for characters that aren't yet in the narrative because we're not writing prose? So what I did instead is I went through and made a make it list, a list of characters characters of all levels, so your main cast, your secondary cast, your walk-on characters, your speaking roles, your extras, background characters, as well as any locations, any specific plot elements that are specific for your world that you need to keep track of, magic, lore, that kind of thing. A note for the timeline, so I have a vague idea of what the timeline is going to be, and any world building stuff that I need to get my head around, because let's be honest, if we're going to do detail orientated stuff, that's in phase 4 and is not for this moment. Instead of calling it character sheets, I called it World Bible Setup, because I know that everybody is like, oh no, it's fine, I know the place, I'll remember the story. My brain dragon digs holes. I have entire series that have fallen out of my brain, and the only reason I know that they're there, or were there, perhaps more importantly, is because I have them on record and I kept good notes. If I hadn't kept good notes, I would have no idea what I was thinking at the time, because Brain Dragon is so excited that it digs holes as we're going, and like whatever we were just doing, completely gone. As if it never existed. I have friends who very kindly asked me after stories that I had told them when I was in the middle of thinking about them. And they're like, so whatever happened with them? And I'm like, with who? Sorry, what? So, Brain Dragon, not as helpful. So with that in mind, and particularly because phase 4 is going to be the detail-oriented section where you end up getting more of the details and making it more concrete so that you have more of the information on the page so that you don't have to keep it in your brain because it weighs stuff up there and can get thrown out at a moment's notice. It means that I could then start focusing on other stuff. And it also meant that I was actually respecting my process. Now, for some people, this might be one of their favorite aspects, and that's cool. Go have fun. Just remember that you're going to have to write the story and you can't just do world building forever. I know I'm the worst, I'm sorry. But having that as a mechanical setup thing means that I know that when I am going to go and do my writing, I can actually just sit down and go, okay, it's at the end of a writing sprint. I'm just going to spend 5 to 10 minutes taking any information that is necessary or important from the prose into the character sheets or into the location sheets or the timeline or wherever it needs to go in the documents so that I have it as a reference so that I actually have a chance of not losing it. And of course, the other thing that I did was I made some tick boxes because there was no check boxes and that made me sad. So I made a checkbox list for Romancing the Beat and Save the Cat. Next time I go and work through these, I can just tick them off. And oh my goodness, I'm hoping that works. I'm going to print those out and stick them in the folder, which I have been neglecting. But see, I had that folder and it was ready for phase 1 and I was like, yes, I'll totally remember that. Brain Dragon, completely forgot it existed. It's fine. Phase 3 completely kicked my butt. Like, kicked my butt. But I didn't think we'd get here. I didn't think we'd get this far through. And here we are. So I am exhausted. I am feeling pretty defeated by this. But this is phase 3. And this is the end of phase 3. I'm about to go and make myself a new plan. Like I would if we were about to head into Act 3 and we were sitting at the All Is Lost. Because I've been sitting there and I was pretty sure that this whole process thing was completely pointless. But it's not. I've learned something about my process. I hope that it has helped you learn something about your process. And I hope that by recording it, when Brain Dragon inevitably dumps out the information that we have gained through this process, and I get to whichever month it is before the next time I decide to do a silly writing project, and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember I had a thing. I can sit here and be like, oh, that's why that doesn't look like what I thought it looked like. Cool beans. Let's not do the same thing and make the same mistakes. Let's make new mistakes, because new mistakes are great. So I'm going to go print some stuff out, go get myself a cup of tea, to plan some stories and have some adventures, and I will see you next time. Bye, lovely.